I'm concerned that I think I was a little encouraged over the last couple of weeks about, some of the races going on in the US, basically, and feeling pretty, not feeling great, confident, but feeling a little better. But after this week, there's been gas prices have gone up again, food prices keep going. I mean, the things that every family, and it's not only America, I mean, this is everywhere. These are countries everywhere. Everybody's experiencing this. And that these things that families really are spending money on, I mean, it's really getting to be difficult and it's getting to be a stretch. And so I think that in many of the races in the US for the midterms, those issues are really coming to the forefront again. And I think I'm not sure that won't be the precedent for the midterms, which I, kind of sad about myself. And I mean, I get it. I have to remember that just because it doesn't necessarily affect me, it does affect millions of families in the US and around the world. So, you have to think about that. I mean, every time you go, we've been sort of last week, like all the gas prices were going down. It was great. Now this week, all the gas prices are going up again. And, part of it, I believe, is OPEC. I think that, OPEC just went like, we're done. I think they're making huge profits and they don't really care about working families around the world who need gas. I think that's going on. So, once the midterms are over, I think the whole discussion about women's rights will even become bigger because I think what we're going to see could be difficult. Yeah.
So I keep coming back to, and thank you, Kathy, for doing this because it does sort of make me question things. I keep coming back to two comments that Kathy made to make sure that we are not overlooking some important issues. And the one is a few months ago, Kathy made the comment, no, let me do the most recent one. Actually, it was last podcast. Kathy made the comment, are people are women voting for women because she's a woman, or are we or them voting for the best candidate, regardless of what the gender is? And I keep coming back to that. And then another thing that she said a few months ago is, let me make sure I put this in the right phrase. Are women educated enough, and are we doing a good job in keeping women's rights in the forefront? We have dropped the ball before, and are we dropping that ball again?
Yeah, that's two really, I mean, they're great comments. And it's complicated. I mean, I think it's really pretty complicated. Those are important questions, but they are, I mean, I think what we're going to see is that, I mean, I hope not, believe me, but I'm really starting to think like we're going to see this whole abortion thing is going to drop off a cliff, because I think that there are other concerns now that are taking precedence. And so again, issues like inflation and the economy, I mean, I'm going to go back to Bill Clinton, basically, who said it's the economy, stupid. It is. And I think it's going to win out, unfortunately. I hope not. I think there are advocates that say it won't. But, I think, again, this is another women's issue that I think is going to go off a cliff, because there are other things that are just really, I don't know if they're more important, but to a lot of people, they're more important. Let's put it that way.
So when do women become important?
When we're 60% of all political offices, when we're 60% of CEOs, when we're 60% of at the table, there's 60% of women around the table for any time a decision's being made. And why my number is 60% is we need a little bit of a buffer, because there could always be that one woman who's going to, if we're 50-50, there could always be, I believe if we're 50-50, the men are always going to look out for the men. And you never know if we're 50-50, if there's a woman who slips into our old pattern of that we don't know, that we're beneath men. You know, there's something inside of a lot of women that, you know, I really believe that is a programming to think we aren't as capable as men. And even though our head might be telling us we are, I think there's a part inside of a lot of women subconsciously that goes against that. So that's why I think we at least need to be 60-50. I really think that we can solve a lot of the problems when we have more women. I think, you know, women are the ones that I believe are paying for, you know, the problems with, you know, the economy. It's ultimately the woman who's always doing less for herself if she doesn't have money, or she's taking the extra job. I mean, there's so many stories where the woman has multiple jobs, but the man doesn't have multiple jobs. And the woman is the one who's got that survival instinct for her kids. I'm not great fathers, but there's still a survival instinct as a woman that you have for your kids that is affecting all of these things, you know, that are important besides abortion. And I think abortion rides, you know, if I don't have enough money, abortion is below that in terms of my priority. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, it is. I think it is. I think
a lot of us are really, really far away of how it is for so many people. I had the experience during COVID for 2 years because tourism stopped and we had no income. And, you know, definitely wasn't going to consider myself poor. I own my house. My husband has a business that he could sell tomorrow for a lot of money. You know, I have things, right? But when this income wasn't coming in for the first time in my life, I was doing things that I had never done, you know, and trying not to spend it. So the number one expense I had at that time was food. So I thought, okay, how can I spend less on food? Never in my life did I think, let me try to spend less on food.
Yeah.
You know, and so it really, you know, I really kind of used it to go, wow, these are how people are living their entire lives.
Generations.
You know, this was gonna, once COVID was over, you know, everything was gonna come back, roaring back in for me. So, yeah, I just think women's issues will be women's issues when we are the majority.
And we've been talking about this for 50 years. You know, I mean, forever. I mean, this never goes away. It's coming to the forefront.
But
so I want to do a couple things, because I wanted to say, like, you know, we always talk about who are you sort of impressed by, I guess. And I had said, one of the things that Kathy and I were going back and forth about is I was really sort of impressed by, you know, like the 18 to 30-year-olds. I mean, I think that, I mean, I'm going to just say, this is an opinion. It's not real, you know, I don't have any particular numbers to back it up, but I think I'm going to venture to say that, you know, 50-year-olds and over have the realization of what's been happening slowly is right there for you. I mean, you can't not, most women can not live that. Do you know what I mean? They've been there, whether they had careers, whether they worked for men, whatever your experience was. I think you're more animated and you understand this and you realize it. You know, you're seeing all these photographs of like 75-year-old women with signs that said, you know, I fought this shit 50 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's there. I think that you need young women to really come out in full force to vote to get us to 60. You know, somehow it's a good number. And I agree with you, Kathy, but you got to get there. And we're not there. And we got a long way to go to get there, basically. So some of the interesting like statistics that I saw coming out of different states. So I've some of these I think I've said before, but so for instance, like Kansas, Michigan, Colorado, their 18 to 30-year-olds have surpassed registration in this year from 2018. So huge numbers going to register there. Now, that's a great thing. Will they go and vote? Do you know what I mean? Just because people are registering doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a bigger turnout. I mean, I think that's all really, I like that. There was an NBC poll that happened probably in early October that said like 64% of voters who had a high interest in voting, which is higher than 2018, they say they're going to turn out for the midterm, like they'll actually come and vote. But we won't really know that till after it's over. I mean, there's no way of really knowing if that can happen. I mean, there are a lot of people who are saying, Michael Moore, who I follow and I like very much, who said clearly in 2016 that Donald Trump was going to win. I mean, he was absolutely correct about that. He is saying that, we're going to see sort of a pink tsunami for the midterms. Well, I hope so, but I'm not sure I feel sure about that. And again, we want to get to that number. You've got to put women in power. You've got to put them in, vote them into every single level of government in order to do that. So is that going to happen? I mean, are we going to see more of that, or are we going to take a big step back? I don't know. I'm kind of fearful of that now.
But Patty, of that percent, of that age group that we feel need to go and vote, how many of those know, number one, how to vote, what they're voting for, and what is the outcome going to look like? And the other day, we were talking about this, and this friend of mine had said she feels that most 18-year-olds to 21-year-olds will go to the polls because they feel that a woman needs to be voted into some political position. That's as far as they know about politics. So they question themselves and going, well, what's my favorite color? Is it red or blue? And that's how they vote.
I have to say, I'm okay with people going in and voting for the woman. I'm okay if they're voting for the woman and it's not my political party. My number one priority as a woman is that I want women to be ruling things. Okay. That's my number one priority. As I've said, the more women that are visible, the more women, little girls, young women are going to want to do it, and we'll finally get more and more and more high quality people, right? There has to be more visibility. So if that's all they know, where I'll disagree with you, Patty, is I don't think this is on the 18 to 30-year-olds. I think this is on all women. I think we were naive at some point to think we were further along than we were. I think we were very busy, right? Like I wrote in that one blog post, at the end of the day, I think we have a lot going on. We've done a lot of things. But, what inspired me this week was this Forbes 50 over 50, women 50 over 50. And to get on this list, you had to have your biggest success after the age of 50. So if you had it at 49, you didn't make the list. And what inspires me about that list is I just think we all have to reach deep inside ourselves to create and move and be involved in things, and maybe run for political office when we're 58 or 62, whatever it is. We have to keep, if we're going to get this flip to have more women in these positions than men, it's going to take a long time, and it's going to take all of us at all ages. For me, and it's going to be something that the three of us, are not going to see in our lifetimes. Yeah. We're not going to see 60% of all CEOs. Okay. And this is the thing that we have to be okay with, that we're pushing it forward. And that's why I think we lost it. I think, the women who fought for a lot of things, they knew it was the beginning, and they had an understanding of what they were starting, and that it would take a really long time. I think even with, these elections, if they don't go our way, they go horrifically wrong for us, we need to pick ourselves up and be motivated the next day. Because that's what the pro-life people did. Let's remember, it took them 50 years.
And that's happening. I think that is happening actually more than it's ever happened before. I think that women are absolutely way more motivated at a lot of ages than they have been ever before. Well, I'm going to say this to you. The last time I remember it being like this was in the 70s. I remember activism in the 70s that I was a young woman really participating in. And I hadn't seen a lot of that. And what I think too is that, you know, okay, so let's say 75, you know, what's the average age that women are going to die? I mean, I think we have to think about that. So, you know, as women are dropping off, you have to have younger women stepping in. And Margaret, to your point, you know, how do they get, you know, how do you get educated? How do they educate themselves to be part of this process? You know, I guess, you know, choosing whatever, but they have to be part of the process. We have to get them in there. They have to take the, you know, the spots of other women who are really going to fall off the spectrum of being able to do this. And I think that that's really important. My fear is that you've had generations of women, young women, who are so used to having everything they want that they forgot where did it come from, and that you actually have to keep rolling up your sleeves every generation and hit it hard. And, you know, you have a lot of 35-year-olds out there who are just having a great life, and they should, women, they should. They've got the jobs they want, they've got the things they want, but they have forgotten how hard those things were fought for. And
I don't think they forgot. I don't think they know. And I think they followed our example, because at 35, I wasn't fighting for women's rights.
Right.
I was living my life.
Right.
They're following our example. That's why we need to be the example now.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a balance. Number one is educate the younger generation, and us older generation, we've gone through that shit. We know how it feels. And so that was our education of going through all of this. So we know what it's like to have rights taken away. We know what it's like to be, you know, to activate ourselves. We know what will happen if we don't do this. So I think it's us educating the younger generation, because regardless of whether we learned it from school or we learned it from some politician, we lived through that. So we fucking know what it's like. If we don't vote, we're not going to get what we want.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it does come down to that. Like, I'm going to give you an example, and this is sort of similar to what we're talking about. But so this week in Florida, we had, you know, Marco Rubio and Val Demings had their, they did a debate basically. And they're pretty much, I think, right about now, neck and neck. I do think that they are very close, or closer than people thought they would be. So during the debate, after the, you know, my perspective is she stomped all over him, and she should have, quite frankly. I mean, she really did, which was great to see. Do I think debates change people's minds? I'm not sure, maybe a very small percentage, but a lot of people watched. So after it was over, there were people, the next day, there were people saying, you know, mad Black woman. All right. So, you know, what happened, like the response to that was, yes, I'm African-American, and yes, I'm pissed off. Just like a lot of other African-American women are pissed off, just like a lot of other women are pissed off about guns and abortion, all of these things. So, you know, again, you know, it's always these kind of reactions to a very strong woman candidate who is really coming down hard.
But
you know,
who was saying angry Black woman? It was
men. Like pundits, probably conservative pundits all over social media.
But probably men. Well, I have my own theory.
Well, but no, because, you know, I would say to you, this is a thing. Like and I've said this before. So some days when I'm at the gym on the treadmill, I watch CNN and I watch Fox News, because I'm always sort of interested to see. And they have a show, I think it's on at 11 o'clock every day, called Outnumbered. And it's 4 women and 1 guy. And those women alone are worse than anybody I have seen on TV, because they are all about saying that kind of information. So, you know, the population is now watching 4 probably between 30 and 40-year-olds, very educated women, very articulate, basically spouting, you know, what I think is, you know, unbelievable right-wing, ridiculous BS. But, you know, it's not only men. There are a lot of women.
Okay, but we're always our own worst enemy. I think men, you know, they just kind of slap each other on the back and laugh when one of them's not doing something quite right. They're very forgiving, men of men. whereas
Right.
women were our own worst enemy. I wanted to point out just right before I got on this podcast that Liz Truss, the Prime Minister of the UK, just resigned, and a lot of stuff was going on there. But again, what should infuriate women about this is that Boris Johnson, they were complaining about him for years.
Mhm.
So now a woman isn't doing a good job and she resigns in 44 days. Meanwhile, this went on for years. So again, in my opinion, and I don't want to get into the job she was doing or whatever, I don't really know. I'm not from the UK. I wasn't following it that close, but I'm just saying, look how a woman took herself out immediately. A man would still be in there. It would have taken him longer to resign. It would have taken a lot longer. And this is what we need to really be realistic about what's going on if we're going to fix the problem, in order to figure out how to fix the problem. As women, we have a lot of things we need to work on. A lot of things.
I agree with you. I just think that we have to, I think you're right. We have to be very brutally honest about what does the face of everything look like. I was interesting when I saw the Liz Truss thing. Now, I haven't read anything about it yet, so I don't really know. But will people say, will there be people in Britain who say, well, that woman couldn't do it? Maybe, probably. Is that really accurate? Probably not. But, that unfortunately is a go-to. I mean, it really is a go-to. Kathy, you and I were going back a little bit about the Nancy Pelosi interview with, I can't think of her name now. Oh gosh, what's her name? It'll come to me. Anyway, she just did, I think it was on MSNBC, and she was asked about why didn't Biden codify, Roe? Well, they don't have the numbers, so why did she even, Andrea Mitchell, that's who it was. Why did she even ask that question? I mean, that was a stupid question to ask, and then when Nancy Pelosi went very, I was like, oh, what's she going to say now? She was sort of like, with all due respect, why, like, it's called math. Like, we don't have the numbers. Like, you think 10 more Republicans are going to vote for that? And then she asked her again, like, why didn't he push harder? I mean, come on, like, that is just really, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't forward anything at all. That was just a really bad conversation. And I think that Nancy Pelosi handled it really, really well. So, as long as we have, that's happening, you have women reporters who are like asking questions like, come on, that's just really stupid. So, I get frustrated because I see those things and I think, we're moving forward. And then all of a sudden we take a huge step back somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you sort of look at the whole thing, women right now, in whatever job they are in, we're in that unsure period of do we push forward and say it like it is, like Pelosi does, and she gets criticized and put down a lot for it, where a man would not, because he would be looked at as he's a strong candidate. He says what he means. If that was a woman, she would be really nullified terribly.
Well, here's my theory on it, you guys. My theory on it is, when we were all little kids, 2 and 3 and 4 years old, we didn't like it when our moms were mad at us. We didn't like it when they were heated, when they raised their voice. And my theory is, when a woman starts to get in a position of power and she's passionate and she's angry, just like men do, I think somehow it triggers in most people, and especially in men, that their mother is yelling at them and that they're in trouble. And I think I don't know how we get over that, because I don't think we should sit around and be nice, but I do think there's something psychologically going on inside of all of us, that for some reason, when a woman is super direct and really firm about saying no, it gets people on edge. And I think it's more than the way women are supposed to be. I think there's something deeply inside of us, all of us psychologically, that we need to look at and realize, this is not my mother talking to me about whatever
I think
conversation.
part of that, I think Kathy, part of that's really accurate. I think it depends on, again, I think it depends on your personality and your age. I don't know that I don't generalize because, I have to think about my personality, my personality was, I didn't necessarily feel any of that. I just felt like, well, I'm right and you're wrong. I mean, I've been like that since I was 5, basically. You know what I mean? Like, I've always been the envelope pusher. I've always been like, oh no, my idea is better than your idea. I would tell you that I grew up in a family where it was very supportive, hugely supportive family. But, I was always pretty. You're so pretty. And I would say, yeah, and I'm really smart. Like, I wanted to be told I was smart. You know what I mean? And I was probably more than half the adults in the room. But, that's an interesting concept. Like, that's sort of the thing.
Where did you get that from?
Oh,
But where did you, Patty, sorry to interrupt, where did you get this thing that you wanted to be known for being smart? Like,
because I just knew because as a kid I was. I mean, I would look around and go like, I am smarter than, I knew that. It was something inside, like I just knew that, I knew I was, yeah, I definitely was. But again, I grew up in a time in an environment where girls were supposed to be, put on a party dress and, be pretty. Like, that's what you're supposed to do, basically. So there, depending on what decade, I guess, you grew up in, you have those different. The other thing is, I would say to you is that as an adult, even as a young adult, no issues with confrontation ever for me. I mean, I actually thrived on it most of the time. So, it's different. I was very different. I was always sort of outspoken. I've always been like that. And I guess, so I hope that as a role model for other women, particularly women who worked for me for a lot of years, really picked up on that. I think that I really encourage them to, be who you are, do what you want. You work in a very political corporate environment, so you have to be careful what you say and who you say it to, but you should at least, say what you feel, basically, right?
Well, I think that we have got to keep the subject on the table. And I think that this subject needs to be had in every single household at the dinner table with the grandparents, the parents, and the kids, so that the kids can learn and the parents can train and the grandparents can give their experience. So I want to continue this conversation because quite frankly, I think it's damn good.
Right, it is, right? I would say to everybody, I'm going to say this, like, because I'm doing this, like, especially younger women, everybody, like my nieces, anybody I know, I'm really saying to them now, and for some states it's too late, but you're registered to vote, go vote. I'm not asking them who they're going to vote for. I kind of know sort of the layout of all of it, but I'm really saying, no matter what, you have to go vote. So you need to make a plan for the day. You have to go and do it. You have to make sure you're registered. Like, it's imperative that you do this, because I think, at that age, if you start voting at 18, chances are you will do it every time. You really will do it. How much I can't account for, but I can account for the fact that you'll show up and do it. And I think that that's important. In the next couple of weeks, especially in the US, there's no excuse for not, let's put it that way. There's no excuse for not voting.
So outside of what this topic has been, what really got you here and here this week? Who or what really made a difference for you this week? Kathy?
Couple things. One was, I mentioned the woman 50 over 50 list, because as a 56-year-old woman who still has a lot of things that I really want to do in my life, it just really fueled my motivation, and it gave me a lot of energy to keep on where I'm discouraged. Another thing that for some reason really impacted me was an interview I saw with Tyler Perry. So he just had a movie come out on Netflix called The Jasmine Blues. Now, I haven't seen the movie, but what's quite interesting is he wrote that script 27 years ago. And he knew that it would be rejected. He was a nobody. And he figured out a way how to make a lot of money, which was through all the movies with the character
Medea.
Medea. And he got a lot of criticism. I didn't realize, because I didn't really follow anything about Taylor, but he got a lot of criticism even from, fellow directors, like Spike Lee, making fun of these movies he was making. And so he became a billionaire. And of course, we know he opened the studio. So at this interview, what he said was, my dream for 27 years that I had in my pocket was making this movie. And I had to get rich and open a movie studio in order to do it. And it just gave me chills, and it just blew me away, because I thought, this person did all of these other things, and he opened a movie studio so that he could make this film. And I thought, man, we can do anything. And to wait 27 years to do the thing, to sit on something for 27 years.
Mhm.
So for me, why it kind of, also gave me a lot of inspiration is because for years and years, I've been sitting on some things. And they haven't been ideas for 27 years, though some of them are getting close. But I just went, oh, they can still go out there. Oh, they can still be accomplished. The timing will be there. So the perseverance that I think we could also all, in this subject we've been talking about, really look at and say, we can keep going.
Well said. I love Tyler Perry. I think he's the most brilliant man. Brilliant man. Patty.
I saw some of that interview, and it was a great interview. I think it was really, he was really upfront about a lot of different things. You know what I mean? And he doesn't apologize for anything. He just said, look, I had an audience for Medea. I knew I did. I knew it would make me a ton of money. Like, what's the matter with that? I mean, I'm all for that. You know what I mean? I think that's great. And then he got himself to a place where he could make other films. I think that, that's sort of what you have to do. I mean, I think that's he's a great example of what you do with your wealth and with your voice. There are a lot of people this week I'm a little disappointed in. This is a crazy thing, but last night on The Daily Show, Trevor Noah had on Amy Schumer. And I've been a fan of hers for a long time. And she's like back on the road now. She's doing, shows again. But she is really, really, really talking about how hard it is to be her age, to be in a woman comic with a child. Like, she's really talking about the real stuff, like, body shaming, how hard she's doing it all. She is putting it all out there. And he asked her, like, why did you make that? For a long time, you weren't doing that. And then all of a sudden, you really went in a different direction, and you're now sharing all these things about yourself, like all of your issues. And she said, after I started to do that, I started to get, emails and letters and all kinds of response from women all around the world who are like, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for doing that. So, I think that it takes all kinds of women. It takes women from every part of life to really make an impact, to, say something, to speak up and not be fearful. Now, again, she's a big star. She's a lot of, like, if she loses some of her popularity or some of her fans, so what? It will mean nothing to her. Same with Tyler, you know what I mean? So again, you get to a level where you have the ability to say those things, to really express who you are. That's difficult to do in this world, I think. So I'm going to go. I was really funny. I was really impressed. And what was interesting is right before her was the journalist Soledad O'Brien, who just did a documentary on Rosa Parks. And she said, everybody knows a little bit about Rosa Parks, but people really don't know that she was an activist for 50 years. I mean, all they remember is the bus, but they really don't remember, exactly what happened. So I think, as I look around, there are women everywhere to really be, heralded. I think that they're doing great things. That's kind of my week.
My week, what really got to me this week was twofold, but mostly not a person, an animal, and family of animals, and elephants in particular. If we as humans could just do half of how they take care of their family, how they have their own little political situation, how they deal with their monarch, their king and their queen and their princesses. We could be a better world, but yet we eliminate these amazing, most intelligent creatures that we could learn so much from. And the one organization that does it, and unfortunately, the person who started it has passed away some time ago, and her name is Dame Daphne Sheldrick. And there is an organization that really deals with orphan elephants and rehabilitates them. And this is the most amazing thing, is they do this to put them back in the wild with a family that didn't even give birth to them, yet they are accepted into that orphaned family, really. So that's who inspired me this weekend, was elephants.
Good for you.
So guys, I know that you are making shit happen every week, and I hope that our viewers get off the couch and go and make shit happen this week. And we want to hear about it. So shoot us a message in the comment section about how and who you made shit happen this week, and let's continue the conversation for women. See you
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.